from Hideaway Homestead. We're going to be talking today about extracting honey. We finally got some honey from our bees this year. And in one of our earlier videos we talked about can we get honey. Well, we didn't get any that time. So now we finally got some. So we're going to go over what all the process of extracting honey from your hives are. So let's get started. Okay, so what we do when we pull the frames out of the hives, we put them into this big plastic tote that we have here. I'll take the lid off so you can see them. This is what we put them in. And we usually stand them up inside the hive, and as you can see, we don't have three. They all sort of fell over, and there's honey all over the place in here, but that's okay. We just stand the frames up in here, and then we take them, and this one's stuck to the bottom. There we go. And then we take them to the truck and put them in and bring them home and extract the honey. Let me see if I can pull one of these out of here, and you can see the frame up close. This is kind of what the honey looks like. This one's got a little bit gouged on the side right here from the other one falling against it. But most of the time, this is what they look like, with all the honey in there. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we get that honey out of there, and the tools that we use, and the whole process, so stay tuned. Okay, when we first started extracting honey, we didn't have a huge budget or anything to buy all these fancy tools, so we sort of improvised. And if that's the case with you, that's great. What we did was we bought this plastic tote like this, got this from Walmart, and we put the honey cappings inside here. We also bought one of these. This is just a strainer that you can buy for your kitchen sink, actually is what it's made for. But it expands on the sides and it fits over this thing perfectly like this. So what we would do is we would stand the frame inside this once we take the cappings off, and then we would get the honey out of it, and some of the honey would run into the box and some of it didn't. But anyway, this is one of the things that we used. But since then, we've gotten something different, and I'll show you that in a second. The other thing that you can use to get the cappings open is these little things here. It's called a capping scraper. These are little sharp things, and you just use them to run it underneath the caps on the frames, and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so what this does is, what you do is, as you can see, this is solid wax over here, so those are capped. You can see a few cells in here that are still open. Those are not capped, but they're okay because there's not very many of them. There's some over here in this corner also that aren't capped. There's honey in there, but they just didn't cap those. What you do is you got to get that wax off the top of there, so you just run this little sharp thing right underneath those things, just like so, and then pop them off. Now you've got an open spot right here with open cells that the honey is in, so you can get it out of there. That's one thing that we use. The other thing that we've recently started using is this uncapping knife. Okay, this is a serrated knife. It has a serrated edge on both sides. It's real long because it fits this. And what you do is you set this knife on the end of the frame. You can see the wood frame right here, and you set the knife right on the edge of the frame. You just put it right on top of it, and then you just push it down, and you just do a sawing motion back and forth. And all we're doing is cutting the caps off of those cells to get that honey out of there. And you can see the wax is starting to fall off. See, it's a slow process, and there you go. See, the wax is starting to drop off. See, now that right there, what I normally would do is I would do that process over here in this other tote that I showed you earlier, but we're just for demonstration purposes showing you in here. Now all these cells in here are open, and this is honey, and it's ready to be extracted. We'll do that on both sides of this frame, and we'll go all the way down the frame on both sides, and then once they're all open, then we'll put them into the extractor and spin it, and you'll see that in just a second, and get the honey out. Okay, this serrated knife that I'm using here is just a knife that you use yourself. You use sawing motion. They also make this same type of knife that's heated. It's electric, and it plugs in, has a plug, plugs into the back of the handle, and it actually makes the blade part of the knife hot, and it just, all it does is it makes it a little quicker to cut through the wax. Those are a little bit more expensive, but whatever your budget allows is perfectly fine to use. You can also use any other kind of knife that you might have in your kitchen that has a serrated edge on it to open these things up. So those are just a couple of things that we use to do this. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to open these cells with the knife. Just like I was showing a second ago, we're just going to continue to cut these things straight down. This is not something that you have to rush to do. You can take your time. All of my wax cappings, that's what these are called down here, that are coming off of here, it's the cappings. All of those wax cappings are going to go into this little basket thing right here. And when we extract honey, nothing gets wasted. So what we do is, when we get the cappings into here, we let this tote sit overnight and drain the honey out. Okay, so I've got one side done. Now I'm going to just flip this over, do the other side. Okay, there, that's pretty good. Next, we go into the extractor. This particular extractor holds 3 frames. And what we'll do is we'll put this in here. It's a little basket thing inside. Set it right in there just like that. And go to the next one. Okay, so we've got the 3 frames that we had uncapped. This is the cappings that are in the basket here. And as you can tell, there's a bunch of honey down here in this plastic box too. What we'll do is we'll put something under one end of this so that all the honey runs to the other end and let it sit overnight. And then tomorrow we'll come back and get the honey out of there too, so that none of this gets wasted. Now we've got all the honey into the extractor. The frames are in here. We have 3 in here, and we're ready to extract this. What we do is we spin this with this handle on top, and it makes the basket inside spin around, and it slings the honey out of the comb and onto the sides of the tank, and then the honey runs down and into the bottom of the tank, and then we can get it out from the valve. Whenever you start to do this, this thing shakes a whole lot. So I have to really hold on to it whenever I'm spinning this thing, because it's pretty heavy and it's pretty strong. So anyway, so let's just go ahead and spin it out and see what we get. I usually start off real slow and then just slowly build up the speed, and you can spin it as fast as you want to. The faster you spin it, obviously, the quicker it comes out. And as you can see, this thing's already starting to shake. It doesn't take very long to get this out. Then I usually just let go of it and let it spin on its own. So now, what we do is we take the frames out, turn them around. You can see this side right here is nice and clean. And if you compare it to the other side, you can tell the difference. Okay, so we spun this side, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this around and do the other side. So spin this one around, put it back in, go to the next frame, do the same thing. Okay, so now let's do the other side. Let's get this thing spinning again. Okay, so now we've got both sides done, and there's the finished product. You can see just a couple cells up here that didn't get open. That's okay, not a problem. There's always going to be a few that you'll miss. And the That's the other side. And we're ready to go. So what I'll do now is I'll let this sit in here for a while and let the honey run down the sides of the tank inside. And then it will eventually all end up in the bottom of the tank. These are the frames that we just extracted. What I do is I put them into an empty tote, and then what I'll do is I'll take this back out to the bee yard and put them in next to the beehive somewhere close to the bees, and the bees will actually clean those up. And all they'll do is they'll just get all the honey that's in there out, and they'll put it back in the hive. So none of this gets wasted. This is looking down inside the extractor. You can see the honey down in the bottom, and there's still some on the side walls of the tank, and it will continue to run down into the bottom. And then when we think it's all down in the bottom, we can actually take this thing apart, and we'll pull this basket out of here, clean this up, and we'll get the honey out of there first, of course. And we have a gate valve, it's called, on the other side of this, and we'll show you that in a second, that we get the honey out of here with. This extractor that we have here does 3 frames. They make one that does 2 frames. They make them that do lots of frames. This one is just a manual one that you have to crank by yourself. They make them that are electric that you plug in and they spin on their own. But for a small operation, this is a perfect size for what you would need. So at this point, what we do is once we get all the honey down into the bottom of the tank, we can open this gate valve right here. I'm not going to open it because it's still running down. But we open this gate valve right here, and then we put this 5-gallon bucket underneath it. The bucket also has a gate valve on it. And we'll put this bucket under here, and we also have strainers that go in the top of the bucket. This one has 2 strainers. This one has bigger holes, and this one down here has the smaller holes. What you need to do at this point is you need to run this honey out of the tank and to here so that it can strain out all the little pieces of wax and whatever, little pieces of grass maybe that might have got caught in there. You got to get all that stuff out of there. So we'll strain this through here and into the bucket, and then we will let it sit overnight so that all the air that's in there will come to the surface. And at this point, you would want to let it sit because you don't want that air in your bottles. So we always let it sit overnight and get the air out of it as much as we can, and then we come back the next day or so and bottle the honey. Hi everybody, welcome back. It's been 1 day now since we extracted the honey. We got the honey into the bucket and we let it sit overnight so that all the air bubbles could go to the surface and we wouldn't have it in the bottles when we get ready to bottle this up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to show you how we put the honey into the bottles. We have a couple different sizes that we usually sell. This is the little one that we sell. It's the smallest one. It's a 12 ounce. We call it a honey bear. And this is a 2-pound bottle. You can order these from any of the bee supply places, and they carry them. They all come with a lid. The lids are made in such a way, these are squirt bottle lids. These are made in such a way that whenever you put this lid on, it comes with a seal already inside the lid. So that when you put this on the bottle and screw it down tight, it seals the top of this bottle. It's just like the same stuff you get in the store. It works the same way. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we fill our bottles. Some people may do it differently than we do, but this is how we do it. We have a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket here with a spout on it. And the honey's in here. We don't have a lot in here. Remember, we only had 3 frames. So there's not a lot in here. But you just open this little gate valve right here. Put your bottle underneath. Open it up and let it fill. And we always try to fill ours up as full as possible because we want to give our customer the best for their money and make sure they're full. So then we close that up, and I always tighten this back down just to make sure it doesn't keep dripping, and it will keep dripping a little bit. So now we've got a full bottle. It's ready for the lid. What I usually do is I keep a wet washcloth around and I wipe the top edge of the bottle before I put the lid on, just to make sure there's no honey stuck to the top. And then our lid goes on. Tighten it as tight as you can, and it's ready to go. We have two kinds of honey right now. This that I just put in the bottle is wildflower. We also have, this is orange blossom. And I don't know if you can tell the difference or not, but the orange blossom is a little bit lighter than the other honey is. One of the things I wanted to point out also is that whenever you get down to the last part of your honey in the bucket, it's going to have air bubbles in the top of it. Usually when we bottle, if we're going to sell the honey, we don't give the customer that honey. What we do is there's nothing wrong with it, but what we do is we keep that honey for ourselves to use here at home. And then we just keep a bottle here that, we just put honey in it and we use it when we need it, type of thing. But we don't give the customer anything that has bubbles in the top. Even though there's nothing wrong with it, some people think there is, and some people just don't like the way it looks and that sort of thing, so they don't want it. But anyway, so it's just something I wanted to point out. If you're selling your honey, that's something you can kind of keep an eye out for. So hopefully this is good information that you can use if you're just beginning in beekeeping or just starting to extract honey and haven't done it before. Maybe this can be some information that can help you. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, hit the subscribe button in the lower right hand corner. Leave us comments, ask questions. If you have family and friends that are interested in beekeeping and extracting honey or anything else that we might be doing here on the homestead, pass our name along to them also. And until the next time, thanks for joining us here on Hideaway Homestead.